I touched on this in previous audios, but I kind of want to go into detail about this. It looks like there is a situation that is coming up, and mostly in communities of color, where they want to talk about their humble beginnings and kind of use that as an excuse not to advance in life. Now, I'm going to talk about the African American experience, but it could be an experience that applies to a lot of other cultures. Now, of course, for those of you who know about the African American experience, that really just developed as a result of a slavery situation, okay? And as I stated before, there were other cultures that were enslaved. So let me go ahead and say that right now, okay? The Africans weren't the only ones that endured slavery. So that being said, I'll get that out the way. I'm going to talk about the African American experience, but hopefully if you're of another ethnic background and you endured this, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Now, there's not a lot of knowledge due to technology and advancements and everything else that's bringing clarity to the entire situation regarding slavery and how it came to North America. A lot of proof. It's good to know your history. There's nothing wrong with that. There are a lot of proof in regards to certain things that were taught to us in the history books that were not necessarily true. In regards to who was involved in the system itself, there's a lot of knowledge that's coming out. And that's good because, the truth is going to come out one way or the other in its own time. And a lot of things are being brought to light that we did not know about. And there are some people who are historians that specialize in studying African American culture, particularly the slave trade and colonialism. And a lot of them are very good. I mean, they get a lot of resources and they provide a lot of information, and there's nothing wrong with that. I like history myself, I like historical things. I find them very interesting. But they are a part of the past. But it's good to know some part of your history so you can have an idea of who you are and where you came from, so you have an idea of where you're going. Nothing wrong with that. But when that information falls into the wrong hands, let's say the historian finds out something and it becomes public and it develops an audience or a following, you don't know the mindset of the people that you're delivering your message to. And I mean, that even applies to my channel here. I mean, I'm speaking to you guys here and I'm projecting a certain message, but I don't know how it's going to affect you individually in your life. I'm hoping it is in a positive way eventually, but I don't know exactly how you're going to exercise the words that I say. So it's the same thing with this knowledge that the archaeologists are coming up with and the historians are coming up with. Once that information is presented to the world, their interpretation of how it should be understood may not be the same interpretation as the people in their audience. People are going to think differently about the same information. Okay? There are some people in this world that they just don't get the fact that there are different people in this world that were created by the same force. I mean, they just can't get it through their thick skulls. They just don't understand. I mean, the same people that are here, where I live in Virginia, were created. The same people that are created in my hometown of Savannah, the same creator now, the same creator created the folks that were in Savannah, my birthplace. The creator who created the same folks here in Hampton Roads. The same creator who created somebody in Pakistan. The same creator who created someone in Scandinavia. The same creator. And there's just some people in this world who just refuse to get through their head that, even though we live differently, we were created by the same force. And it's like people get so wrapped up into what person and the person and the person, you're not thinking about the source. And that's why I try to emphasize with people, before you get wrapped up in a situation that someone's involved in, you got to go to the source. You got to go to the beginning and figure out why this whole thing started in the first place. And that will give you a little clarity on how to receive and deal with it. But you've got some of these people that are African American that already had negative attitudes towards certain groups of people. And unfortunately, in the slave trade, there were certain people from other countries who were involved in it. So now that they're finding out all this new information, they figure, oh boy, now it's so-and-so's fault. So now they got another group of people that they decide they're going to hate, because they already had prejudices against them in the beginning. And now this new information has given them more of a reason to hate them, more of a reason to be narrow-minded. Okay? And you got to be careful of these people, because these people, for number one, they're not they're not spiritually enlightened. They may think they are, but they're not. Number two, they haven't been exposed to anything different than what they were raised up with. And number three, they don't want to learn anything else. They don't want to be exposed to anything different. All they want, they're so stubborn, they want somebody to validate the negative feelings and the narrow-minded conceptions that they have of other people. So you got to be careful when new information is being presented, whether it's science or history or something like that, to the world. There are some people in this world that are going to turn that around and create it as another reason to hate, another reason to be closed off, another reason to be stubborn, just another reason to be negative. And got to be careful. I know some people who are crazy about history. I mean, I like history too. But there are a couple of them that all they talk about is history, history, history. And then we have great conversations about history. And they talk about the fact that, before slavery, a lot of people in Africa were rulers and they dominated, and how they took care of themselves and thrived in their own economies, and how they weren't slaves to anyone. They were self-sufficient. They made their own way. But that same person who went on and on about that, talking about how we were kings and warriors and queens and empresses, they'll turn around and work 40, 50 hours a week for a face that they've never seen, giving up time, complaining about how they got to go to work every day. They'll sit there and hit their time clock, and they'll very patiently wait until that Friday or every other Friday for those few dollars that they get. But in the same breath, they'll talk about how their ancestors were kings and queens and warriors, how they didn't answer to anybody. So they're going to turn around and take historical slavery situation, and they're going to embrace that and embrace all that information, but they'll turn around and live financially as a slave in the present. Come on now, you got to take a lesson from that. Because I hear that from people all the time. I told you I live near a shipyard, and there's a convenience store right down the street, and it's a convenience store that is the last convenience store of this particular brand, and it's a popular brand before these people get to the yard. And there are plenty of times I'll go in the store for something, and I'll hear people have conversations. They're on the way to the shipyard, and they're talking about, oh, how we were kings and queens, and we made our own way, and we didn't have to answer to nobody. And these people are working 6 days a week, because they have to, in their minds. A lot of them don't have a thought to strike out on their own. But wait a minute, you're from this ancestry of people who made their way. How come you're not making your own way?